Welcome back, everybody, to Citizen Bear. This is a podcast based on my book, The Demonstrative Citizen. We kind of started it based on some of the themes in the book and, relating them to today's society. It's not just about, reading the book or getting to know the characters a little bit. I love the book, but I wrote it, so I guess I would have to. But, the world has evolved so much today, and there's so many things happening, and a lot of it today has become very dystopian, and I kind of saw a lot of the themes from this book, and I wanted to take this podcast and talk about things going on in our world today and talk about those themes in the book and put a few things in from my perspective. But, you can take it or you leave it. It's food for thought. We've covered a lot of stuff, but I want to, and certainly our society today doesn't leave any, a need for finding new stuff to talk about. But we've kind of moved into an area of emergency preparedness over the last few sessions. We talked about the need for mental strength and hope and keeping, faith close. We've talked about security and the start of security, physical security, but that theme, I've broken security out from the typical pillar that it is in emergency preparedness stuff. And kind of, because I think everything is security. I think security covers all topics. There's food security and all kinds of security. So, but that idea of physical security. And then we've gone into food. We started food and water, and this is the second part of that. We covered food a little bit last week, and this time I want to get into some water. And I think this is a much more complicated area. Fire, we're going to talk about fire next week. And like fire, water is a very complicated area. It's got a lot more to it. I think people are like, oh, well, there's water everywhere, right? No problem. No, not at all. And we want to kind of start getting into a little bit more about what you can do in that emergency situation on just about any level, whether you're sheltering in place or whether you have to be on the move or are forced on the move, whether it's just a short-term natural disaster or a longer dystopian problem in our society, and we need to deal with that. And certainly those fears are real out there today. If we're not paying attention and you're not preparing for that, you may be your own worst enemy. Things are not going well in Europe. The South China Sea is still very, very difficult. Israel and Hamas have managed to find a peace settlement, and Donald Trump deserves a lot of credit for that, the Trump administration. But we'll see how that goes in the Middle East. There's hope there. But within our country, there are still a lot of very difficult issues, and I still believe that there are the beginnings of, or not the beginnings, but a well-established, well-thought-out Marxist revolution going on in your country. And I don't think you have to go far, but I'm not here to debate that today. All of these things can bring about strife and problems within your country. So, whether it's World War III or an external force or an internal strife or a combination of the above, being prepared is a very important concept, and it can leave you in very different things without going into all the different aspects of what might happen or could happen. So we want to start talking about a little bit of this. First of all, water is critically essential to your life. I'm not sure a lot of people really think about it day to day, but you need water. You can only survive for about 3 days without water. Now, you could stretch that a little bit into a week or 5 to 7 days, but your body's going to start breaking down and you're going to start having difficulties and you're not going to perform. So to keep yourself up and going, you're going to need some water and you're going to need fluids. So it's important to think about that. And at all times with all of this, having some supplements to put into your water or your water bottle, if you're adding like a Gatorade mix or some other, mix like that gives you electrolytes, is huge. It's always something that you want to think about as part of this formula. But today, I'm sorry, I'm getting over a cold here, and you don't want it. If it's going around your neighborhood, stay away. But if water itself, the foundation in water itself, is got a lot of facets that we want to talk about today. Some things for you to think about. In an emergency situation, we can have power outages, and power drives a great deal of our society. This is also true of cyber because we are today, so much of our infrastructure is linked through the internet and other things. Are all linked together on the internet a lot of the time, and they're all running through computers and other things. So cyber attacks are also part of this. But I'm going to take on from the loss of power, which runs the same idea. And as a result of that, water plants can go down. There's no pumps, so a lot of time we pump the water up into towers or tanks, and we gravity feed it into the systems. But if we can't pump it up into the system, into those tanks, then we don't have water. Or whatever's left in the tank is what we have available. And frankly, a lot of the time we can't pressurize the lines. So, your water plants maybe, and that also adds to the fact you may not be able to, when I say water plants, you can't clean the water. They're not going to be able to process water for you. So that's just another fact. Even if you have it, you may not have what you want. So that's something that you have to start thinking about right out of the gate, and why you may need to start thinking about preparedness on water. Natural disaster or a man-made disaster can leave contaminants in the water. That's just what we're talking about. People or just animals or anything else can put things into the water upstream. If you're out and you've got a pretty good running stream near your house and you're like, looks clean to me, maybe not, because you don't know what's going on upstream. People washing their dirty clothes, whatever, in a difficult situation. You don't know what's going on. They're putting their waste products in there, whatever. And it could be coming down, and the water could be quite contaminated, but it looks all right. And that's really bad. So we have to, just because water's flowing doesn't mean it's going to be healthier for you. That's just kind of a wives' tale, especially in today's world because we have so much population around things, around our water systems. War or civil unrest can leave water contaminated intentionally or unintentionally. Stuff, bombings, sabotage, whatever, can put things in the water. Just, the natural fallout from a natural disaster where, mudslide or whatever else gets into the water, or, other kinds of things. Water can run dirty, and that's all there is to it. These contaminants or viruses can directly or indirectly make you very sick. And what I mean is it can even kill you. And what I mean by directly is, yes, directly they can kill you, or they can make you so sick that they will dehydrate you to the point that you will eventually just die from it, much like a scurvy kind of thing. But you can also pick up parasites and all other kinds of bad stuff from the water that eventually will kill you. So, it's good to make sure that you've got the right stuff, because if you're looking to survive out there, you can't, something you need every few days, certainly you need every day to really be performing at your best, is going to be working against you. You're just failing right out of the game. Keep in mind that as you go out, stores are going to empty out. That's true of food. It's true of water. Bottled water is going to disappear fast. So we saw this in COVID, but, I think in a real disaster, it'll make COVID look like a picnic. And those stores, in a difficult situation, unlike COVID, we may not be able to sustain or reorganize our supply lines. So people may have a lot of self-interest and other things. There's a lot of dynamics that can occur in a difficult situation. There's another factor with water, and we talked about this in the last session a little bit. Water weighs a ton. 1 gallon is a little over 7 pounds. So when you start looking at, packing out, adding water to your kitting out of your kit, you may, you may find that you're only carrying a little bit of water because you start getting all this extra weight on you and it's sloshing around back there. It's hard. You're not carrying other things that you need. So you have to have that ability to go out and resource water on the go. And even if you're sheltering in place, if you have reasonable supplies, eventually you're going to run out of those supplies. Hopefully you have enough on hand to give you a huge running start that you can continue to backfill on slowly and keep you ahead. But you need the tools to do that. We want to be able to look at things that are going to help us clear out some contaminants, possibly things that will work for us both if we're on the move or if we're sheltering in place, if we're resourcing water from different areas. And I just want to make a point on this. You have to be very careful about water. Even if you're in you go somewhere and you're picking up government water or some guy's got water there, you don't really know what you're getting. I mean, I think if the National Guard shows up, they're probably they're telling you it's potable water. I mean, it probably is good. But a lot of the time, if those caps aren't sealed on there at the factory and you're getting loose capped items in water bottles, you got no idea what's in there. No idea. Somebody may have greatly decided to help out and put it in taps, in bottles and help people or in jugs, but that doesn't mean you're getting clean water. You have no idea how they source that water or what their situation is, and you've got to make sure that water's clean. I guess I want to say to you with kind of wrapping this little segment up here is, are you paying attention? Are you watching what's going on in the world? Are you really, it's so easy to take the blue pill, isn't it? We live in that kind of world where we're encouraged to do that, and we want to do that. I do. We want to go about our daily lives. I'm getting older. I want to start looking to a very happy retirement and walk on the beach and relax a little bit. And it becomes more and more attractive. But I've got things I still want to do with my life too. So, and my wife and I are working on those things too. But are you paying attention? I can tell you we've always had turmoil in this country. It's just the nature of free society. We've always had back and forth, and we've always had some upheaval in the world. God knows, but to tell you the truth, I don't think I've ever seen it quite like this. I mean, I go back into the 60s and the early 70s. I was very, very young in the late 60s, but in the early 70s. But I can tell you, I do remember those times, and there was strife. But the world was still different. The world's a different place now, and all this has a very different feel to me, and a very scary feel, with everything going on externally as well as internally. So it helps to pay attention and think about what we're doing. So let's talk about some solutions and move into a new segment here. Let's talk about containers. Do you have food-grade containers that you can store water in? I don't care if you're on the go, your car camping or on the go, or, you're sheltering in place. If you've got the ability to get ahead a little bit, can you store the water? And can you treat the water to be stored? That's something to think about. So, of course, some people like the, some people like the 25 or 50 gallon drum deal. I'm a fan of the 25-gallon drum, but not for long-term storage. But that's just me. Some people go for that. That's great. I'm not saying it's wrong. I think the 25-gallon drum is good for resourcing water, like if you're getting rainwater or drainage and things like that. You can pull it up off, the roof and stuff like that as a collection point, and then treat it and disperse it a little bit. But some people swear by the 25 or 50-gallon drums, and that's all right. It's food grade. You can put it away and store it and treat it. There are also bladders. Now, I like these. As a matter of fact, I just ordered one for myself, and they come in different sizes and shapes, and you can put I just ordered a 100-gallon one for myself, and you can fill that with water, and you'd have 100 gallons of water sitting on a stand or your concrete floor. But you have to keep in mind that if you're putting 100 gallons of water out there, you're probably getting 750, 800 pounds of water. So you want a solid floor to put it on, a concrete floor. It's a good basement thing or something like that, or in the back of your pickup truck is going to take most of the weight of your standard pickup, but you're getting up there. So, but you can utilize something like that even if you don't fill it all the way. And you can put a spout on it and you can pour the water out, but it's a nice way to carry some potable water, or store some potable water. Now, more called off, of course, you can use 5-gallon containers. I use them. This is one of my mainstays of long-term storage. I have multiple 5-gallon containers that I keep. They're the blue containers. Blue is usually water containers and water storage. And I I keep, a series of these 5-gallon jugs, we call them, and keep them with water stored in. We'll talk about treating that water. There's also a product out there called water squares, and I bought a little show and brag on this. This is a water square. It's a great little product. They call them water bricks. You can find them online. And these hold about 3.5 gallons of water. And they're a great little thing. In these little notches, you can stack them. And I think you can stack 6 or 8 high. Kind of set one next to it and cross them and then cross them. And sorry, having a little trouble with this cold. But this is a great way to also preserve some water. And nice thing is you can have a cap. You can buy a cap, or it comes, if you buy a set, sometimes they have them included. And it has a spout. So you take this, you stand it up, you take this off, screw on the spout cap, and you have a little spout. You lay it on its side, and you take it up to your kitchen, set it on the counter, and you got 3.5 gallons of water. The reason I say this over the 55-gallon drums, I'm not knocking those, but 50-gallon drums, is if you contaminate a 50-gallon drum, you lost 50 gallons of water. If one of these gets contaminated, it only contaminates itself. So I like a little bit smaller, modular ability to keep some of the water. Just me, but people can go on with that. I use a variety. Like I said, I use these. I use the 5-gallon containers in my basement. Between those two things, I keep almost 100 gallons of water. Freeze-dried foods, and to, keep water on hand for my wife and I and anyone else who happens to be with us. And so these things are important to have on hand, and keep a decent amount. Now, I just bought a bladder that I'll also keep, so that'll double my water capacity in the house. It'll get me up to about 200 gallons. I know that seems like a lot, but if you're using it every day and you're drinking water every day and you're using water to make freeze-dried food and you're cooking with it and all the other needs you have for water, you're going to be surprised how fast 100 gallons of water goes, even 200 gallons. It'll last you a while. It's going to give you a really great running start. Again, also with the modular, when you're backfilling, I may have a half a tank, so I don't want to a 55-gallon drum. I don't want to contaminate that with new water, right, that I'm going to treat. I want to use a smaller container so I can get a 25-gallon, start to fill it, and I can pull out of that, clean one of these, add water to it from a 25 gallon that I've picked up rainwater from or other things, and I can treat that water then, and I probably have something pretty good. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but this is one of the great solutions out there, and you can use all kinds of different modules. It's got a nice little handle, so you can carry these and move that water around. You're not picking up 50 gallons of water in a big container. The other thing is you want to look at some 40-ounce bottles and some maybe 32-ounce bottles. I brought one with me here. There's great companies out there that make these. I have a variety of different kinds of canteens. This is a clean canteen is this one. I actually, to tell you the truth, this is a 32 with a nested. And if I can get the nested out, I can show you. Come with a nice molly bag. Sometimes clean canteen doesn't always come with the molly bag, but you can mix and match some of these products and do stuff like that. And I'm having a little trouble getting this out from down below there. But it does nest a cup. And it keeps, there we go. That cup's in there. And it has a little stove, too, that you can set it up on. So if you want to make tea or something like that, you can do that if you don't have a burner stuff. So we can move that aside. But, yeah, this is 32 ounces. I keep this in one of the saddle pouches of my backpack. It's not too much water, but it's enough to get you kind of started. And you can use stuff like that for small water on hand. So you should have some water on hand cans. I also have a 40-ounce canteen. Like I said, this is clean. That canteen happened to be a clean canteen, but I one of the best products out there, I got to tell you, is Dave Canterbury's Pathfinder School stuff. And he has a store, and he has wide mouth canteens with a nested set and other products like that, and even the round stuff. Great. I really do favor his products. Again, I have no affiliation at all. He has no affiliation with me in his products. Not at all. Just I use them. I recommend them. That's all there is to it. So having some other smaller containers is critically important, because if you're on the go or you're moving around, you got to have someplace to store some of that water. In keeping with that, we talk about resources in emergency preparedness and having different things as a resource in your bag. And I've already talked about adding some of those things to it. But one of the big things that you want to add, or you keep on hand, are small water bottles. Right here. Keep a water bottle here in case I start to get a dry throat and stuff. But because it's threaded and you can keep a little water. Now, I know people don't like to reuse these, but it's better than getting bad water. And you can reuse these, and I'm going to talk to you about that in a minute on how we can reuse that. So that's another type of container that you can have on hand. So let's talk about a few ways of prepping some water and prepping these containers. You take like this container here. I take some plain bleach. You don't want scented or anything like that, just plain bleach, and put it in here with, maybe half a gallon of water. Shake it, close it up, shake it really good, give it a little rundown, let it sit, shake some more, give it a really good cleaning that way. Pour it out. I put some fresh water in there. I clean them. Again, rinse it out. And then you're ready for your potable water. You put some water in here. And I'm going to show you some of the things I add to the additives. But once you put your additives in there, your stabilizers, it'll kill anything that's in there. And it can preserve water in a container like that 5 years, up to 5 years. So that water will be on hand for a long, long time. And to tell you the truth, the additive kind of really makes it, some of the additives that you use today are really make it almost effervescent. It really is quite good. The water is really nice. So let's talk about purifying and obtaining and stabilizing the water. And that's when I talk about putting things in, I'm talking about stabilizing the water. And also, but part of stabilizing is cleaning it. So these things do work. We can use the plastic water bottles, not the most favorite, but there is an advantage there. And one reason it's a resource to have one or two of them on hand. But let's first and foremost talk about one of my favorite toys, survival things when we're talking about water, a straw. This is a great tool. This one right here, it's probably the best of, style. It's not necessarily the brand, but this style. And something to look for, 0.01 micron. This is the end you sip out of. Just set it down in the water, start drinking. Clears 99.9% of just about whatever is dirty in the water. I mean, if you really, really got muddy water, I might recommend filtering it a little bit just to save some of the filtration in the straw. But to be honest, these will handle up to 1,800 gallons of water. So you can go years using this straw and adding it. Now, the nice feature about these two is if you look at the bottom, it has a little screw on. So I can literally screw this onto a bottle of water. And this is why I say, if you don't know the water you're getting, but you get a container like this, but it's already been opened or you're not sure about it, or if you've sourced water and you just put it in a plastic container like this, not in your canteen because you don't want to dirty your canteen, you can put some water that's questionable in here, screw it on the end of your water straw, start drinking. Boom. Very fast. Water on hand, water on demand. No problem. And it really, really works well. And these are just awesome for when you're out there. I'm actually in the process of redoing some of my pouches and stuff. But I keep two pouches, in the very top of my backpack that I use for kind of that first line. And then I keep bins with other things for sheltering in place, or I have a bin and some of these water bladders I can put in the truck and go on the go with. But these two things are in the very top. This one's a very on the go, and I'm about to change the pouch, but I keep a little bit of fire starter in here. Got a small straight blade, striker, spork, small straw, more fire, some Blackbeard fire starter. We'll talk about that next time. And water purification tablets. Just everything some matches, some, anywhere matches. this is kind of a first go. You arrive at camp, got a little flashlight. You arrive at camp or you get somewhere on the go, you can open the top of your pouch. You're not fishing around. That's right out of the gate. Second pouch, this has got some tissues at the top, and the rest of it is pretty much all wipes. And I like these. I love this brand, this Clean Freak, and, they're just make a great product. But you can take this product and you can put it out. They have a hand wipe, a body wipe in there that you can use and disinfecting, and they smell great. And also, in case you got to do a deuce in the woods, they got, or you get to one of those privies and they're out of toilet paper. This will clean you up quick. They have the butt wipes, and they're very nice, and they're very scented, and they're very disinfecting, so I would highly recommend them, the product, and it's a nice offset to having toilet paper. You can carry some toilet paper, but carrying these is really a great, great thing. So between these two pouches, when you arrive in camp, you're pretty much set to get started, and then you can start digging down into your pack and start looking for things. If you need more fire starting equipment or something like that, you can dig down a little further or whatever else. Water purification. But if you get there and you got your straw, ice straw, you got some other things, you can at least get a drink of water quickly and start the process. Get yourself a little refreshed. We're talking about obtaining and purifying. So, the straw is just a fantastic tool. And I keep two of them in my pack. So I keep one ready to go, and I keep one in the saddle bag, one of my saddlebags in the pack, so I can get resource it quickly. So it's just something really worthwhile to have. Now, a second thing that's really great, and I brought one with me, and I got to tell you, more genius out there, right? This is a P&G product. And this was made for around the world. It initially came out. It's really designed to help people in countries, third world countries that are resourcing water. And you get this bag. You can see you get some tools with it. It has this little bladder down below. And really what you do is you hang this up on a tree, or you can shake it with your hands and just hold it and stuff like that. But once you get this, you fill that with some cruddy water. You can use a 5-gallon bucket. A lot of people do. And you can use this and add, I got them in here, so I'm not going to pull them out, but they have these pouches of powder, and you put one of those for this bag. I've seen where some people needed two, but you put a pouch in there and you let it sit, and you can literally watch the crud condense and fall to the bottom, and it will purify the water over a period of time, half an hour, I guess, and you can get it down there. And then you clamp off the bottom where all the crud is, and you just open that up and let it out, and open up, and you have a spout in the higher up, and you've got gallons of water ready to go. And each of these pouches is supposed to clear about 5 gallons of water, but you can use a 5-gallon bucket. But it's a really very efficient system, and it cleans the water, so it's ready to drink. So if you get to a camp and you've gotten down the road, you need to fill your canteens, you need to fill some of your buckets, that you're carrying on the move. This is a great way to, purify some water, know it's really clean, and get it into your canteens. And it doesn't mean you still can't use your straw or other products, but you can restock very quickly with this, and it's a really great solution. And if you're sheltering in place, same thing. You can start backfilling your water with this very, very quickly. Now, pills and liquid, and I have to say, I use this for stabilizer. It's a great product. Yeah, I got a box here in a bag, don't judge. I'm changing my some of my pouches. I'm really big on modularizing my emergency and preparedness stuff, but yeah, don't judge, okay? Actually, these have served me very well, but I'm getting a little bit more of these Molly's things and a little bit bigger ones for some of my stuff. Aquamira is one of the leaders in this, and I would, use their stuff here. They've got tablets here. And you add tablets to your canteen, so much water, follow the directions. And you can also use liquid and drops, and you can you can stabilize the water. It'll purify the water. I mean, it kills the bacteria and stuff in the water, but it'll also help stabilize it for a long period of time. And, this is what we have here. I have the larger ones. and I tend to use the larger ones for the bigger jugs, and I can use, you only need like a small, quarter of a tablespoon for a big jug, a teaspoon, quarter of a teaspoon even for each one. There's an A and a B in here. You put them in there, you follow the directions, or just add your pills. Now, one thing also I keep in here with this, and you look around for these are little bags. They're swag bags, you call them. So I guess some people call them that. And you can fill them with water. You can walk up to a stream and you got the dirty water in a swag bag, and you can start purifying it with these Aquamira tablets or something else. Or, in other words, you're not getting your canteens dirty. So it's a strong possibility for using that. And these types of things, like I said, you get this treatment in there. You get those drops into either, I don't care if it's a 5-gallon, 3.5-gallon, a 50-gallon, or a canteen of some kind, a water bottle. You can hold that water for up to 5 years. I mean, it's staggering, and it'll be great. So, certainly if you're on the go, you don't need it for 5 years. But if you're waiting for a disaster or you're preparing, having water that's good, sitting there stable is just irreplaceable. Of course, I would be remiss if I did not talk about fire. Fire is a great way to disinfect water. It's the oldest and simplest way. But fire doesn't always remove all the contaminants. P&G, it'll probably remove just about any contaminant that's in there. But you can use fire to disinfect the water. And, I mean, if you're pretty confident in the water source, but you want, like I said, it's running water. It's up in a mountain. It's not dirtied by anything else, There's no fallout or anything like that or other crud or stuff like that. You just want to disinfect it because there could be a dead animal carcass or, whatever up higher. You want to just clean that. So, a fire will disinfect that water. And it's not a bad way of doing it. You let it cool and, right? You can start to put it away in your bottles and stuff. There are a lot of other filters out there. This is not a complete log of that. There's all kinds of filters. I can tell you that, if you're just hiking, some of those filters are great. I've seen a lot of them clog terribly. I think what we showed here today is a series of layered approach to water purification that will give you a lot of security and ability to resource water, whether at home or on the go, and not be dependent on water that you can't necessarily trust or don't know what you're going to do with. So, if you're going to get stuff, read carefully and think it through. Because I've been out on the go, I've been on hikes, and I've seen a lot of guys, a lot of people, you pull out this filter and you're like, yeah, this is my moment. Here I am. And you get into a muddy lake or something, you start, pumping or doing whatever this filter is supposed to do, and it gets backed up and clogged, and it just doesn't work. It's good on a crystal pond, but it's not good for a difficult situation. So, know your gear and know what you're using. I think that's really important as part of this is to make sure that you do know your gear. And I want to encourage you with this, but I'm going to get into this last segment. I'm going to kind of fall into a conclusion here. You need to do your own research. You need to go out and really work on this. All of this is not meant to tell you what to do. It's meant to give you food for thought so that you can start finding what's best to do. It give you leads and give you opportunities to find things. I mean, you can buy P&G probably on Amazon. It's not hard to resource a lot of these things, but you do need to learn. Aquamira you can probably get on Amazon or other places like that, survival sites and stuff like that, hiking stores. You can resource these things. And I would say to you that, but learning how to use it, using it, trying it out, these are all important things because you need to know what you've got. Trial and error when you're under the gun is a loser. It's a tough way. You're behind the curve all the time, and you're fighting to get ahead. Don't do that to yourself if you're really of a mind for this. I want to touch on something that might be a little more difficult for people, and that's in conclusion here, and kind of keep in mind your food and water can be taken from you. And this is why we get back to physical security. The government may not be able to help, first of all, and in some cases may be an enemy. This is the beginning of the gray man concept of survival, if you will. It touches on that ideal a little bit. The government in a crisis can and will exercise extreme powers, even martial law, to seize, and under that, they can seize food, they can seize water, they can seize firearms, and anything else that you may have. So keeping it a little understated is not a bad thing. People don't need to know what you have. Others may also try to seize your supplies, not just the government, but people get desperate. I'm a great believer in community and helping each other, but you need to have a like-minded community. Remember, the guy that didn't survive, didn't prepare, didn't do anything, but he's got a sorry look on his face. You know, I guess everyone needs to exercise their own level of grace and Christianity in that. But he's the weak link in the chain. And hopefully he has something else to offer that's going to be more valuable than and you can afford to give up supplies to have that person in your fold. So other skills are important. All of these things, though, remember, will run out. Being well stocked, the more you have of it, the better prepared you are, the more depth you have, the bigger head start you're going to have on a crisis, and the better your odds that you're going to ride that crisis out. So once you find things that you like, and I hope I gave you a good running start on some water here and why that water is important and containers you can use, you can start some trial and error, not under the gun, have a little fun with it, and you can get some supplies that really work and have extra things on hand. Yeah, I have this little packet here, but I keep extra powders that you can buy beyond just the plastic. So I have a pretty good running start. And I hope this gives a few non-preppers out there a nudge to begin preparing and getting ahead and start to think about some of these things. Water is important. And when you're in a survival situation, something simple like water can be far, far more complex than you think it is. So having tools and giving yourself an edge. I know there are guys out there and gals who are like, you know, they got a lot of answers and they can survive on it. And, you know, I don't know, they made a filter out of crayons and, you know, leaves or something. That's great. You know, the family recipe, it disinfects while it does it. I'm sure it works, but that ain't you and that ain't me. Giving yourself every tool, and I've been around the woods a long time, giving yourself every tool to have an advantage is a positive thing and a positive running start. Don't sell yourself short. So we're going to move on to some tools for fire next week, and probably a few other items to go along with that, which will bring several of our topics full circle: food, water, you know, even a little security, other things like that. You know, fire is a very important linchpin in just about everything because you need to boil water if you're going to have hot coffee, tea, you know, if you're going to make hot food, if you're going to be warm in a shelter, if you're going to do a lot of things. Having a little light in a dark place is a very powerful tool. Nothing more comforting than a campfire. Nothing, even if it's a barrel fire in your community, it's still a help. I'll try to pass along a few hard-learned lessons from my time, and you know, and those looking to may help those who are looking to get started. So I hope you'll watch next time, and I hope we can bring some cool stuff. And we have limited time, and again, this is meant to be an introduction, this is meant to be food for thought, not a final thing. So I hope you take the ball and run with it and think about it, because you know, we live in a difficult world, and the hardest thing in the world is to have to look at yourself, your children, your family, and say, I wasn't paying attention. Because at that point, it may be too late. So with that, let's be more positive, and I'll see you next time.